Yantika, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening to everyone joined with us today in this digital platform, which is organized in memoriam of Franz Kafka, 100 years of the great writer's death. I, Antika, your host, honored to be anchoring this event with my co-host Kanav. This has been organized by the Postgraduate Department of English, Karim City College, Jamshedpur. Now, I would like to invite our Principal Sir, Dr. Mohammad Riaz, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am delighted to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished guest, Professor Vibha Sharma, Professor, Department of English, AMU Aligarh, Professor Sunij Sharma, Assistant Professor, Department of English, AMU Aligarh, Dr. S.M. Yahya Ibrahim, Head PG Department of English, Karim City College, faculty members and students joining us virtually today. It is indeed a privilege to have a such distinguished academician, Professor Vibha Sharma, Professor Sunij Sharma, with us here today. On behalf of the management of Karim City College, I feel honored to welcome such a great personalities from the field of academics who have graciously agreed to share their insight on the 100 years of the great novelist and writer Franz Kafka's death. E-cademy is an e-initiative of the PG Department of English, Karim City College, which intends to open the doors of knowledge for our students by introducing them to fertile mind across the globe. In the earlier events of this series, the department has welcomed several academicians of the national and international repute. Today's interactions with Professor Vibha Sharma and Professor Sunij Sharma is the another one in the series, and we are all eagerly looking forward to a welcome, wonderful lecture today. I congratulate the head PG Department of English, Dr. S.M. Yahya Ibrahim, for his efforts in bringing such an eminent personalities to us and wish the department a wonderful event today. I extend my best wishes to the department, its students, and its faculty members for a dynamic learning session ahead. Thank you. Thank you very much to all.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable speech. So, now I would like to invite Dr. Sunij Kumar Sharma from Aligarh Muslim University, who have completed his MA and PhD in English literature from Aligarh Muslim University itself in 2009 and 2015 respectively. His doctoral research focused on the study of post-colonial dramas. Before joining the Department of English as a regular faculty at Aligarh Muslim University in 2019, he also worked for some time as a content writer in Mumbai and as an assistant professor in Punjab. He has published few research papers, articles, and translation in both Hindi and English. He also authored one monograph which have been published by Sir Syed Academy of Aligarh Muslim University. Now, he will be speaking on the topic Cinegenic narration in Kafka's fiction. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible to all of you?
जी
Yes,
बिल्कुल.
sir.
Please give me a minute. I'm trying to share the screen with you. Just Is it visible to all of you?
Ji Sunij.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm thankful to Karim City College, the principal of Karim City College, Yaya Bhai, for all the staff members to giving me a chance to give a presentation on the synergenic narration of in Kafka's fiction. I couldn't prepare a PPT, so I noted down some points which I wanted to include or incorporate in my lecture. The title of my lecture is The Synergenic Narration in Kafka's Fiction. And I hope the MS Word file which I'm sharing with you is visible to all of you. The synergetic narration in Kafka's fiction. As you all know about Franz Kafka, he was born in 1883 and died in 1924. And if you talk about his biographical sketch, he was born in a Jewish family in Prague, and he became a doctorate in jurisprudence and worked for many years as a civil service lawyer at the State Workers Accident Insurance Institute. So these are some basic details which are known to all of us, and most of us are also familiar with the name Max Brod, who was the closest friend to Franz Kafka. And I would like to quote something from Max Brod, who says that there are very few writers like Franz Kafka, because few writers had the fate which was that of Franz Kafka, alive to remain almost entirely unknown, dead to become world life, how his poems publication became known to the readers, and a lot of things which are related to Franz Kafka's life, then you will find the reference to Max Brod's name. Max Brod also wrote a biography of Franz Kafka, and he further says about Franz Kafka that writing was for him, as he himself mentioned in his journals, a form of prayer. Franz Kafka's efforts focused on spiritual fulfillment, on achieving life which should be pure. His life was entirely absorbed by the efforts to achieve the highest that lies within man's power, by the urge intensified to the point of suffering and almost to madness, to eradicate from himself every vice, every human failing, while examining his own weaknesses with a microscopic care, to achieve that communion with God, which in his aphorisms he describes as the indestructible. In this, Kafka was, of all modern writers, the most akin to Tolstoy. So according to Max Brod, the way Kafka described his writing exercise as a form of prayer brings him closer to Tolstoy. But there is another important thing which brings Kafka closer to Tolstoy, and that is something to cinema, which I find very interesting. If you read some writers, especially writers like Franz Kafka, Tolstoy, if you read James Joyce, if you read Difficult Loves by Italo Calvino, then these are some of the writers which give a lot of description in their narration, which makes their fiction more alive and makes it look like some sort of a cinematic description, some sort of a cinegenic attribute we find in their writing. Tolstoy was also very much inspired by cinema because it was the beginning of cinema, and he was inspired by it. He wanted to watch some early footages which were available in those days. So there are few references to cinema in Tolstoy's life. There is another important thing about Kafka in relation to cinema, or his reflection on cinema, which I found in a book which was compiled by Gustav Janusz. Gustav Janusz is Janusz, possibly. Gustav Janusz is also a good friend, known as a good friend to Kafka. And this particular book is a compilation of conversations which he had with Franz Kafka. And this book, the title of this book is Conversations with Kafka, Notes and Reminiscences. It was published in 1953 for the first time, and it was translated with the translation of this book. It was translated into English by Gronvi Ries. So if you read the translation of this book from German into English language, it begins with a translator's preface, which is written by Gronvi Ries. And then there is an introduction to the book by Max Brod, who praises the manuscript of this book when he first saw it. And Max Brod, when he saw the manuscript of this book, Conversations with Kafka, he said, even Kafka's physical appearance, his manner of speech, his gentle and expressive habit of gesticulation, and other physical traits were all vividly recorded by Gustav Janusz. And then Max Brod says in the introduction to this book that I felt as if my friend had come to life again, and that moment entered my room. So he wrote this in the introduction to the book Conversations with Kafka. What is interesting about this book is if you read this book along with Kafka's letters to Milena, this book and the letters to Milena, they fill in a gap. Like if you read about Kafka's life, then in his diary entries, there is a period which is silent, which is missing. So if you want to know about that period, possibly this book and letters to Milena can fill in the gap. And that particular period when these conversations took place, it was possibly in the beginning of 1920s. Gustav Janusz met Kafka at the end of March 1920. And this is possibly the time period when you can say the time period when Kafka possibly had the idea of writing The Castle in his mind. So Kafka's novel, The Castle, written between 1921 and 1922. So this is a very important period during which Gustav Janusz had a lot of conversations with Kafka, which he recorded in the book Conversations with Kafka, Notes and Reminiscences. Another important thing about this book is that Max Brod while praising the manuscript of this book, also said that this book reminds him of Peter Ackerman's conversation with Goethe, through which we came to know about the concept of world literature. So, what is interesting about this book in relation to my lecture? Kafka at then March 1920, and Kafka's novel The Castle, written between 1921 and 1922. And one of the reminiscences which is related to cinema has been given in this book, Conversations with Kafka. So when Gustav Janusz one day went to see Kafka, he asked him a question, and I'm going to read out for you. I hope it's visible to all of you. The recorded conversation goes like this. Franz Kafka always gave a look of surprise when I told him I had been to the cinema. Once I reacted to this change of expression by asking, "Don't you like the cinema?" After a moment's thought, Kafka replied, "As a matter of fact, I have never thought about it. Of course, it's a marvelous toy, but I cannot bear it because perhaps I'm too optical by nature. I'm an eye man, but the cinema disturbs one's vision. The speed of the movements and the rapid changes of images force man to look continually from one to another. Sight does not master the pictures. It is the pictures which master one's sight. They flood one's consciousness. The cinema involves putting the eye into uniform when before it was naked." "That is a terrible statement," I said. "The eye is the window of the soul. A Czech proverb says." Kafka nodded. "Films are iron shutters." So when we read this conversation between Gustav Janusz and Kafka, we see that Kafka does approve this new form of art, which should rather be called a recording form of art. If you read James Monaco's popular book on cinema, How to Read a Film, so in the very first chapter, when he discusses film as a work of art, he talks about three popular forms of art, and one of them is recording form of art. The other two are representational form of art and the performing arts. Performing arts, which includes drama, always takes place in reality, in real time, rather. And if you talk about representational form of art, it relies on the codes and conventions of a language, which can be the language of painting, which can be the language of poetry, which can be the language of prose. And it is open for interpretation. The third form of art, which is recording form of art, which includes cinema and photography, because it relies heavily on technology. And without the advancement of technology, we could never have known about this recording form of art. So cinema as a recording form of art, it has an edge over other art forms. It can incorporate whatever is being done in the name of writing, painting, music, audio, visuals, largely, animations. So it can provide a platform for all different forms of art. But there is something interesting, which we also find in the conversation between Gustav Janusz and Franz Kafka, when he says that I'm an eye man. I cannot bear it. I cannot bear cinema because perhaps I'm too optical. Being too optical, what's the meaning of being too optical? If we read something written by Max Brod, and that explains it more. There is a very interesting book which was written by a researcher. It's a PhD work done by Duttlinger, and the title of the book is Kafka and Photography. In this book, Duttlinger quotes Kafka's closest friend again, Max Brod, stressing that Kafka's access to reality was primarily visual rather than analytical. So Max Brod claims it, that the access to reality which Kafka had was based on the visual experience. He relied on the visual proximity, focusing less on the analytical mind. But it doesn't be absent. We are saying that given let's talk about this again. If you have read the famous essay by Walter Benjamin, which talks about the mechanical reproductions, the meaning of art in the age of mechanical reproductions, he talks about a concept called optical unconscious. And Walter Benjamin says that photography unravels a side of reality which is not known to the naked eye because of the quickness. When a photo or a camera freezes a moment, it gives you ample amount of time to analyze it. This frozen piece of work unravels a lot of things which are not known to the naked eye. So this optical unconscious, it is given away because of this camera, the recording form of art. As I mentioned you, the book by Duttlinger, Kafka and Photography, it also reflects on the same idea that how Walter Benjamin's optical unconscious can be studied to understand what Max Brod means by saying that Kafka's access to reality was primarily visual rather than analytical. And what is the meaning in this conversation when Kafka says that I'm too optical? Now, in order to understand it further, keeping in view the fiction of Kafka, the castle, the trial, a country doctor in the penal colony. If you read all these fictional works, you will find there is a lot of space where Kafka or Kafka's optimal capacity, Kafka's Kafka's optical capacity, Kafka's uh, uh, synergenic interest becomes apparent. Kafka possibly dislikes or doesn't approve of cinema because for him, the images or the moving images put a barrier to your imagination. But when you read a cinegenic narration about having watching based on cinegenic narration, imagination is extended. So, for example, if you read A Country Doctor by Franz Kafka, in the very beginning, you will feel the whole narration. It's about the movement. It's very much cinegenic. And when you read it, you can imagine. And different readers can have different imaginations. And all these imaginations are suggested by the narration written by Franz Kafka. The colors might be different. The images might be different. But the core of those images will be somewhat related to what Kafka has written in his short story or fictions or novels. What I'm talking about, that why Franz Kafka doesn't approve of cinema is possibly because he believes that reading a narration which helps you to visualize a scene is far better than watching a film based on the same narration, because the images, when you see them on screen, they limit your imagination. But when you read about them, it widens the scope of your imagination. Let's read something more to understand it further. There is a very popular name in the history of cinema known as Dziga Vertov. And in 1929, Dziga Vertov directed a film which was titled Man with a Movie Camera. It's a very popular film. And those who are interested in cinema or those who love to watch documentary films, films which have shaped the idea of cinema, developed the understanding about cinema, they always love to watch those films. And Dziga Vertov's Man with a Movie Camera is a wonderful example of such a film. Some scholars call it a documentary film. It's more than that. So Dziga Vertov's Man with a Movie Camera, if you watch the film, it begins with a description about the language of cinema. And Dziga Vertov says that this art form, which we call a movie or a film or a cinema, or this language of moving images, it has a language. The language which is different from the language of literature, language of poetry, language of prose. It's altogether a new discipline. And this discipline speaks through the language of a mechanical eye. He is using a phrase. Dziga Vertov talks about mechanical eye. A mechanical eye which cannot think, which is not intelligent enough, but a mechanical eye which can describe the world more vividly than the human eye. But this vivid description through the mechanical eye, possibly for a writer like Franz Kafka, this vivid description through the mechanical eye is possibly lifeless, or it gives the impression of reality, but it's not reality. If we read the famous book on cinema by Christian Metz, Film Language, in film language, Christian Metz talks about how cinema gives the impression of reality, but it's not reality. It creates an illusion. That's why in the beginning days of cinema, many illusionists and magicians got attracted to cinema. They started buying camera and they liked it. The way illusion was created on a screen. But if we compare Ziga Vertov's mechanical eye with Franz Kafka's literary eye, then we find the latter is much more lifelike. Franz Kafka's literary eye is full of life. Its vividness, though, might be less than the vividness given by or provided by the mechanical eye, is more lifelike. It has something which gives you the idea about reality, which can be analyzed from different perspectives. For example, let me read out something from The Castle. It's a very famous novel by Franz Kafka, and it has been translated by many translators from German into English. The particular translation which I'm going to refer at the moment is translated by Willine Edwin Moore. It's a very popular translation, and from German into English. I'm going to read out something from page number 13 of the book, The Castle. I also have a copy of it from page number 13, and it goes something like this. So you all know about Franz Kafka's The Castle, and this is from page number 13. Kafka writes, "So he walked on, but it was a long way, for he was in the main street of the village, and it did not lead to Castle Mount, but merely passed close to it before turning aside, as if on purpose. And although it moved no further away from the castle, it came no closer either. Kay kept thinking that the road must finally bring him to the castle. And if only because of that expectation, he went on. Because of his weariness, he naturally shrank from leaving the road. And he was surprised by the extent of the village, which seemed as if it would never end, with more and more little houses, their window panes covered by frost flowers. And the road on which he had persisted and struck out down a narrow alley where the snow lay even deeper. Pulling his feet out as they kept sinking in again was hard work. He broke out in a sweat, and suddenly he stopped and could go no further." This is something from Kafka's The Castle. Let's take another example very quickly. A Country Doctor by Franz Kafka, translated by Johnson. A country great difficulty and was in a village 10 miles. A snowstorm filled the space between him and me. I had a carriage, a light one, with large wheels, sorry, entirely suitable for our country roads. Wrapped up in furs, with the bag of instruments in my hand, I was already standing in the courtyard, ready for the journey. But the horse was missing. The horse. My own horse had died the previous night as a result of overexertion in this icy winter. My servant girl was at that very moment running around the village to see if she could borrow a horse, but it was hopeless. I knew that. And I stood there useless, increasingly covered with snow, becoming all the time more immobile. The girl appeared at the gate alone. She was swinging the lantern. Then, so these are two examples. If you read Kafka's fiction, as I said, like many other fiction writers, including Tolstoy, Italo Calvino especially, James Joyce, then you will find, especially Italo Calvino and Franz Kafka, in their fiction, dialogues find a space when there is utmost necessity. Otherwise, the narration or the way characters or the situation is delineated is always mesmerizing. It's more like these writers give us the idea that fiction is a genre which is very much different from drama, which is very much different from poetry, which is very much different from cinema also, which possibly some of them had an idea in the beginning days of cinema. So Franz Kafka's dislike for cinema or not approving of cinema is possibly due to the reason that he was very much interested in cultivating the language of his fiction. Cinema, as we all know, that since its inception, it's a recording form of art. In the very beginning, or at the turn of the century, in the beginning of 19th century, it challenged many art forms. And what happened because of that? That cinema, a recording form of art, challenged other art forms, which resulted in the development of different literary sensibilities. For example, in the field of painting, when cinema, if you talk about the early painters, they used to like that painting was also a way of making portraits. During the Renaissance period, and later on, we have seen that in the history of painting, we read about it that many emperors, kings, and queens, they used to hire painters who used to make their portraits, and painters used to earn their livelihood by doing so. But when camera came in the 19th century, we know about camera lucida, we know about camera obscura. This is how the technology was taking shape. But when the camera came, when it became possible that even a common man can get himself photographed with the help of a camera. When the technology became democratic, the whole process became democratized, it challenged the painting industry. It challenged the art form. And it also challenged the art form uh, by introducing the concept of movement. As I said to you that if you read Christian Metz's book on film language, it says that cinema gives the impression of reality. Why? Because the moving images gives the impression of reality. If you see anything running with a speed of 24 frames per second, it gives you the impression of reality. And this impression is missing in a photo, which Roland Barthes has also talked about, that how a photo that captures a moment, it freezes a moment. And since it freezes the moment, you always know that this is something which belongs to the past, not to the present. But cinema, it's also like if you talk about, let's say, documentary films, it's also a recorded movement. But because of its movement, it gives you the impression of reality, that something is taking place in the real time. And because of this, what happened in the field of painting, some of the painters, they faced a challenge. And they said that we should also talk about movement in painting. And that's how Cubism came into existence. And we know about Pablo Picasso's contribution to the field of Cubism. But in Franz Kafka, we see that the literary eye is more sensible than the mechanical eye. One more thing I would like to point out here very quickly, that there is a YouTube channel which is titled, it's a YouTube channel of London Review of Books. And for this YouTube channel, Will Self, there's a person by the name Will Self who recorded a documentary. And the title of the documentary was Kafka's Journey, a Prague walking tour. He recorded this documentary for YouTube channel of London Review of Books. And if you watch the documentary, throughout the documentary, he's reading excerpts from Kafka's story, A Country Doctor. And in the very beginning, when he reads the first paragraph of A Country Doctor, he claims, Will Self claims that Kafka writes a lot about movement. Kafka writes a lot about movement. If you read the beginning of A Country Doctor, you will feel it. He writes a lot about movement. And this is something which is cinegenic, which makes Kafka's narration cinegenic. So what makes Kafka's narration so different? As I said to you, that there are many other fiction writers where you can find ample amount of dialogues in their novels, in their fiction, in their short stories. And which is also, I say, a wonderful thing. We also admire it most of the time. But from the perspective of cinema, for example, if you read Satya Ray, he says that a good cinema is a cinema which relies less on dialogues and more on the screenplay. The same kind of feeling I find in Kafka's fiction. You will find he writes about movement and he delineates characters, situations, places, monuments, and you start admiring those things because the screenplay, it takes hold of you and you like it a lot. Another important thing which I would like to point out here is when you talk about translation is usually of three types. There is intralingual translation, interlingual translation, and intersemiotic translation. Intralingual translation, as we all know, is a translation in which we do not change the language, but we change the script. It is within the same codes of the language. Intralingual. Then you talk about interlingual translation, where you change the language, and which is very popular these days. Everyone talks about interlingual translation. For example, as we are reading The Castle in translation from German into English. But then there is a third translation, which very few people talk about, and that is called intersemiotic translation, where we talk about the semiotic codes. And I would like to talk about here. I would like to here talk about a very famous Russian filmmaker whose name was Eisenstein. And I would also like to talk about here a book by another Russian filmmaker, Tarkovsky. And the name of the book is Sculpting in Time. Sculpting in Time is a very famous book by Andrei Tarkovsky. So Tarkovsky, in that book, Sculpting in Time, says that when he was a student, his father gifted him a camera. And then he talks about his early experiences with camera. And he says his father was a poet. So when he got the camera for the first time, what he wanted to do? He wanted to his father's poem and then do the intersemiotic translation in form of visuals by recording through a camera. So reading a poem and then recording some visuals, which more or less are able to reflect on the same poem. So then comes the question, is it possible that you can replace a poem by a painting? Or is it possible to replace a poem by a set of images or moving images? Or is it always possible to bring both of them together? For example, this can be publishing a poem with a photo or a sketch, or reading out a poem in audio format along with some visuals. So this intersemiotic translation is which is something interesting for filmmakers. Filmmakers, like, as you all know, that cinema, the history of cinema is known to all of us. We know it from the beginning because it is the only art form whose history is known to us. We know when the first footage was recorded, how it was shown in different parts of the world, also in India in 1890s. And we know that this art form had no material of its own. The very famous formalist Boris Eichenbaum, when he writes about the language of cinema and literature, he says that the early cinema had to borrow its material from literature. The very famous American filmmaker who made the film by the name The Birth of the Nation, he said that, who is my predecessor? My predecessor is Charles Dickens, because I borrow the material from literature. So when you borrow the material from literature, what you are doing, you are to some extent doing intersemiotic translation. You read a novel and then you want to make a film on it. So turning a novel into a film script can only be done when you have some knowledge about that what kind of narration should be considered cinegenic. And This we find, like, for example, when you talk about interlingual translation, we talk about translatability of a text, whether a text is translatable or not. Similarly, if you want to make a film on a novel, you also think about the translatability of a work of fiction in terms of intersemiotic translation. And this we found in Kafka. That's why you will find all his major works have been used by filmmakers. There is a very famous film which is made on Kafka's life and fiction by the title Kafka. It was made by Steven Soderbergh, a wonderful film which was made in 1993. And if you watch the film, then you will find it's a blend of both Kafka's life and Kafka's fiction. Similarly, there are lots of other films made in Russian language, German language, English language, which are based on Kafka's work. In The Penal Colony, A Country Doctor, The Judgment, The Castle, The Trial. Because I'm not saying it's easier, but I would say when a filmmaker or somebody who has knowledge about the synergenic nature of a written text or fictional work finds Kafka's work more interesting, more engaging, because here you find a lot of space where you can pick up a character from Kafka's fiction, a situation, and all the material with its vividness is available for the filmmaker. One more thing I would like to point out here. It's not only because that the researcher or somebody or any scholar is trying to look into Kafka's fiction from that perspective. It is there in the nature of Kafka. Like, as you all know, that some of us have an interest in the visual imagery. Some of us has interest in the auditory aspect of the language, the auditory aspect of narration. Some of us are very much kinesthetic, and some of us can remember names easily in comparison to remembering faces. Some of us can remember faces more easily than remembering names. Let's talk about Kafka's diary. In his diary, there is an entry from November 1910. And I want to read out something, if you all can see it. This sketch is not there in the diary. I borrowed it from internet. The source I have given at the end of the reference. So let's read out. I'm going to read out this entry from Kafka's diary from November 1910. Julius Schnorr von Carolsfeld, by Frederick Olivier. He's sketching on a slope. How pretty and earnest he is there. Within parentheses. Oh, sorry. The parenthesis is not there. Sorry. Julius Schnorr von Carolsfeld, drawing by Frederick Olivier. He's sketching on a slope. How pretty and earnest he is there. A high hat like a flattened clown's cap, with a stiff, narrow brim extends over his face. Curly, long hair, eyes only for his picture, quiet hands, the board on his knees. One foot has slipped down a little on the slope. But no, that is Frederick Olivier, drawn by Schnorr. So this is a popular sketch which was made by a very famous German painter whose name was Julius Schnorr. And this sketch of a person who was also a German history painter and his name was Frederick Olivier. So this sketch, Franz Kafka saw, and then he wrote about it. So you can find out that how easier it was for him, and how interesting it was for him to describe some sketch in his words. And that's why I'm saying Kafka's literary eye is uh, more engaging, it's more arresting, it's more lively than the mechanical eye of a camera. And this you can find in The Trial, the Kafka, all major writings of Franz Kafka. I have here given some excerpts from other works also, but I don't want to read out all the excerpts because it will take a lot of time. And very quickly, I'm going to sum it up that in Franz Kafka's fiction, we find that there are instances where you find that his narration becomes highly cinegenic. He is providing vivid details about the characters, the situations, especially, for example, if you read The Trial. In The Trial, the very beginning of the novel, when the arrest, the chapter 1, which was titled The Arrest, and when he's going to have conversation with Frau Grubach and then Fräulein Börsner, something from the beginning. He says, someone must have been telling lies about Joseph K. He knew he had done nothing wrong, but one morning he was arrested. Every day at 8 in the morning, he was brought his breakfast by Mrs. Grubach's cook. Mrs. Grubach was his landlady, but today she didn't come. That had never happened before. Kay waited a little while, looked from his pillow at the old woman who lived opposite and who was watching him with an inquisitiveness quite unusual for her. And finally, both hungry and disconcerted, rang the bell. There was immediately a knock at the door and a man entered. He had never seen the man in this house before. He was slim but firmly built. His clothes were black and close-fitting, with many folds and pockets, buckles and buttons and a belt, all of which gave the impression of being very practical, but without making it very clear what they were actually for. Who are you? Asked Kay, sitting half upright in his bed. Now, when you read this, it feels like that you are reading some film script. So that's why I'm saying that the cinegenic aspect of Kafka's narration is very strong, and which makes his writing more lively. But as I'm saying that if you read a novel without watching a film, it widens the scope of your imagination. But if you watch the images first and then you read the novel on which a film is based, or some cinematic adaptation is based, then it limits your imagination, and all the time you are reminded of those images which you saw on a screen. So I think because of this reason, when Kafka had a conversation about cinema, he said that I don't much approve of it. Here I am almost near to the end of my lecture, and I am thankful to again all the staff members of Karim City College. I'm thankful to Yahya Bhai. I'm thankful to the principal of Karim City College for giving me a chance to deliver a lecture on Franz Kafka. If you have anything, any question to ask, or I think I should.
Sunij, we will take up the questions at the end of the session after Vibha's lecture.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
please
Thank you.
stay with G, please. Yes, Yantika, please.
Thank you, sir, for your knowledgeable lecture. Your presentation was clear and insightful. Now, I would like to introduce our second speaker, Professor Vibha Sharma. She is a professor in the Department of English at Aligarh Muslim University. She has over 2 decades of teaching and research experience. Her scholarly work span in several fields, including post-colonial studies, modern drama, literary theory, and environmental humanities. She has a mock course titled Studies in Theatre on UGC Swarm portal. Her international academic engagements include serving as visiting faculty at Stockholm University, Sweden, where she teaches post-colonial theatre and English studies. She has presented her work at numerous national and international conferences. Now she will be speaking on the topic of the mimification of Kafka, depth means digital.
Thank you, Kanak. Good evening, everyone. I'm thankful to Karim City College, and I'm happy that we are interacting through this medium because today's meeting is a kind of a revival of my very old connection with Karim City College and especially Yahya Bhai because uh, we have been working together in one or the other way, and this has given us an opportunity to collaborate. A lot of students are present here, so I really extend my warm wishes to everyone in Karim City College, especially led by the principal Saab. So Karim City College is always coming up with one or the other good surprises, and this is definitely one more thing. So I'm happy that Sunij has spoken about a very interesting aspect of Kafka, and my my discussion, my topic is mimification, which I'm sure some of the students present here, the young people present here, must have found interesting because the word meme is it belongs to the jargon that most of you people are using all the time and are sharing memes or looking at memes. So that's why I chose this topic because I find it really very interesting because whenever you are scrolling through social media, whether it's Instagram or YouTube, and if you are looking at reels, one or the other reel of in other way, you will find Kafka's name shooting up, and it is always very fascinating because uh, there are not too many names that have become so innately connected to this meme culture, and Kafka is one of them. So I'm trying to look at the reasons for this presence, why Kafka figures like this, and obviously our first step towards this discussion will be that we all will look at some memes and look at the variety and the diversity in which Kafka is connected to these kinds of things that happen around us. So allow me to present my screen. Is it visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. So good that Sunij has already introduced some aspects of Kafka's life and his personality. Uh, so for me, as a person who is more connected with performing arts, I find Kafka very fascinating because this is one name from the world of fiction who has very smoothly transitioned into the other genre, that is performance spaces, especially through discussions in films, filmmaking, and other reasons. So uh, this there must be something in him that makes him so easily approachable for various genres. What is there in him? So that this is important for us to find out. So I welcome you all again one for this discussion. And this we are all living in digital space. We are all living in digital age, and our discussions in literature studies cannot remain isolated from the aspects of digital world for a very long time. We cannot, uh, we cannot live in denial to the inroads that digital world has made into our literature spaces, whether they are classrooms, whether they are our research discussions, or the way we read literature. We are influenced by the digital around us, and therefore it is imperative that all of us make some or the other informed choice and come to terms with this reality of digital. And that is why I am trying to dabble with this discussion. So as you can see that Kafka's works are renowned for his existential themes, absurdity, and psychological depths. So this is going to translate to various kinds of humor driven world of memes. So these are the things that we will cover today. Who was Kafka and what are his key works? And how has his literature been memified? And what does this say about modern audience? And does this memification preserve or dilute literary depth? Because the word that I have chosen is the depth meets digital. And the fact that Kafka is a very profound author, he's a very complex author, is not some kind of overstatement. We all know that he has layers to his texts and layers to his language. So as Sunij already said that, briefly about his origin, for the sake of students present here and to create a connection between some roots that belong to Kafka, I would like to tell that he was a Czech-speaking German Jewish writer born in Prague, and which was the part of Austro-Hungarian Empire at that time. Kafka is celebrated for various themes like existential dread, alienation, bureaucracy, and absurdity in modern life. His works often feature protagonists which are trapped in surreal, oppressive, and very incomprehensible kind of situations. To the audience, I must say something very peculiar that we all belong to different cities. I am living in Aligarh right now. You all, majority of the audience sitting here is sitting in Jamshedpur. Maybe some other people are also connected from different cities. Now, if we take a moment and we try to find out which is the city in our life which has its calling, like which is the calling of our identity. So we have a city or not? Is there a city that that imprints totally on us? We need to find that answer to this question, because uh, Kafka grew up in Prague, which is a very beautiful city of East Europe. Some of you should try to Google and look at the pictures of Prague. It has its very peculiar culture, and Kafka's relationship was deeply intertwined with his literary vision and the city. The fact that he was born into a German speaking Jewish family, which predominantly had a Czech environment, Kafka existed on the margins of multiple cultural and linguistic identities. So, if we count how many identities of linguistic intervention are collaborated in us, we will find that it's very surprising, because sometimes we just very plainly and one very linearly call ourselves as a Hindi speaker or an Urdu speaker. But if you dig out the dialectical aspects, the different dialects that have crossroads in our personality, we'll find that there is more complex picture. And so with Kafka, Prague, with its Gothic architecture, labyrinthine streets, and the historical layers, often mirrored the psychological and existential landscapes in Kafka's work. The city became a metaphor for alienation, bureaucracy, and entrapment as seen in the oppressive settings of his stories, especially the trial and the castle. At the same time, Kafka's Jewish heritage and the broader Austro-Hungarian milieu influenced his existential struggles with belonging and identity. He many times grappled with the feelings of isolation, torn between tradition and modernity, community and individuality. So, as a city, Prague was both his home and a source of his estrangement, a source of his alienation. A city that, like his writing, embodied the ambiguities and contradictions of his existence. His key works that I will be touching upon and are very popularly mentioned in the memes that I will take up are, the first and foremost that on the top is The Metamorphosis, written in 1915, then The Trial, which has been referred to in the previous discussion, The Castle, and some other short stories, especially in the Penal Colony, Hunger Artist, etc. So, why I have mentioned Prague, the city that influenced Kafka, the city that belongs to Kafka's identity, uh, is an important point onto which I will come back towards the end of my discussion. So I'll leave it here, and I will explain further that what was the reason that we need to look at from that perspective. Sorry, audience, I have a bad day with my nose today, so you'll have to bear with some strange sounds. So some of the important themes that we find in the process of memification of Kafka's literature are: number one, the simplified absurdity. The existential dread and absurdity in Kafka's works are reduced to digestible, humorous social media posts or phrases like Kafkaesque, often misapplied to any mildly frustrating bureaucratic experience. So we find anything problematic, anything slightly irritating, frustrating, we refer to it as Kafkaesque. That is the trend of social media. The second thing is the relatable content uh, that is produced by Kafka, the characters, such as Gregor Samsa in The Metamorphosis. These memes highlight the universal feelings of alienation and societal pressure using Kafka's characters, and they make them accessible to broader audience. And of course, the visual representation. How can we forget about? Because you all will agree, memes are watched, memes are seen, memes are observed more than memes are heard, memes are listened, or memes are understood. The first thing that a meme does is the visual content that it provides. And the comedic depictions of Kafka himself, many a times as some kind of quirky, misunderstood artist. That may be some reason. That may be reason for uh, probably we find a lot of memification related to Kafka. Then modern audience, they seek some kind of relatability with authors. The relationship of audience and the artist, author, is very peculiar in the spaces of social media, because in social media, audience do not want to admire an artist who's on a pedestal, or even someone who is grand, or even someone who is who's across, who's beyond an arm's reach. We look at artists as some kind of a friend, or some kind of a pal, to whom we can just reach out and have a handshake, with whom we can share a smoke, or we can sit and have a coffee together, and somebody who can chat with us sitting by our side, because accessibility has totally reshaped in the form of writing comments in the comment sections, reaching out to your artist on Twitter spaces, in social media forums. So you can write even to Amitabh Bachchan, you can even respond to Salman Khan, or to uh, Hollywood heroes. People can on a daily basis comment on Elon Musk and get commented back by him. It could be any artist, it could be anybody. Like, even if an artist doesn't reply back, but they are in touch, they are in our access, and that relative, they have to be relatable. So audience gravitate towards bite-sized content that resonates with their personal experiences, such as feeling trapped or alienated in work, relationships, or societal structures. Then engaging with complexity in a light way has become a very important fashion of modern discussions across social media. Like, uh, nobody dies a virgin because life fucks all, are the kind of philosophies that we find social media is full of. And then we have smileys and emoticons to provide with these kinds of things. So instead of diving deep into Kafka's themes, audiences are often engaged with them humorously or superficially. And of course, memes also give us a reinterpretation of the canons that have existed in the last century. And Kafka is one of those canons who has traveled beyond 20th to 21st century very smoothly. So does this mimification preserve or dilute the literary depth? That's the question. So mimification of Kafka's works can both preserve and dilute the literary depth. So we will come back to this question later on, also, whether it dilutes or it. I'm leaving this to you. Maybe you will have a better answer. Now, moving on, let us look at some of the important memes that I could gather. And in this process, we are just watching the memes. I have tried to gather as many memes I could, but I know that there are dozens more memes available. Maybe you have better options to share, but let us look at some of the important ones. And of course, metamorphosis tops the list. So as you can see this here, this is my Instagram picture, and that's my real life picture. So you can see the reference to the big insect that the character in Metamorphosis had become one morning. So I'm like this cockroach in my real life, but my Instagram picture is like this. Nearly everyone feels like this. Here is a Kafka story of same stage or other. It's you can see that there is a psychologist, and a person in the form of cockroach is lying on the couch and is sharing with his therapist, or you can say psychiatrist. So it's a kind of a counseling session. Then you can see this is a famous picture of that meme. And this particular picture has several meanings. I've chosen only few, but several meanings. So here it's written girl, not this. So maybe this is a boyfriend, maybe this is a father, maybe this is a mother, maybe this is a friend who's commenting like fed up from some girl and reacting to it, because you can see that when a cockroach is upside down, cockroach is on its back, it cannot get up very, very easily. It's fatal. So she sent me her location, bro. The fuck is this? So you can see what the fuck, that kind of word is there, but here if you can see bro TF is this, and that cockroach has rushed to attend that attend to the location which the girlfriend has sent. Now you can see another one. This cockroach is holding mobile phone, something very common that we also do when we are lying on our bed. I think this is a picture that all of us can relate to. We are lying on our bed like a good for nothing insect, and being a couch animal, and just scrolling through social media or the content on internet. Some more memes related to metamorphosis are like this. You can see knock knock, because people used to knock on the door of this character Gregor in this. So this is inspired by this. Well, those were some unsettling dreams, and those dreams have made this person behave like this. This is in Spanish, and again you can see that, hey dude, that sounds rough, but I will need you to come in. So again, a meme which is related to that bed situation. A person is caught inside, trapped inside, in his bed like an insect, or metamorphosed into an insect. This is again, you can see, if you want I can this is a girl who's bothered, who's first of all dreaming, and then she has uh, created a mess, and then she's got an apple has fallen on its head. And in the story also, in Metamorphosis, the apple falls on Gregor's head and he hurts himself. So that scene is this. Again, I dreamed I was Kafka. This is again a meme where a session of psychologist and or you can say therapist is going on, and the person is saying that I feel that I am Kafka. Now, you can use these memes anywhere on some different topics other than metamorphosis inspired. These are other, like in 20th century, I have the true feeling of myself only when I am unbearably unhappy. This is Franz Kafka's statement. But in 21st century, this has transformed into, when I'm fucked up, that's the real me. So then, are you a Kafka person or Dostoevsky person? So there is a lot of debate between, whose loyalist are you, and Kafka and other artists are there. And Kafka is this constant. Kafka is this constant whom you find present in almost all those comparisons. So this is one. Then the state my account is in. You can see that there is this Kafka, me, and there is this person who's drowning, and that has again been referred to Kafka. What waiting is like, now that we know when Kafka is coming out. So you can make whatever you want of these means, because they don't mean specifically something one. There is no linear meaning. They are always contextual. And her light cone gets me. So this is fine. So this is again a dialogue from Kafka. Most people with a time machine, and if you ask Kafka, me with a time machine, bro, are you okay? And Kafka says no. So this is uh, again inspired from Kafka. Then you can see that Kafka is getting up and that cockroach is there right behind, and this again another sentence is written here. Too bad Eliu is dead. I would like to join the Stallion hunters for my most desired outcome. And Kafka and me and Eliu, again you can see Kafka's present in this meme. Now some more, look at this. In Kafka cannot create new consumer using Kafka consumer groupism. I don't know what does this mean. I'm sure this is very contextual meme. But look at the presentation, look at the way it is presented with the cat and all. So to what extent Kafka has innately entered into the jargon and presentation of visuals. Now you can see the three famous authors and how their shades are on the right and the left. This is reference to Kafka. Then Snoopy reads Kafka Diaries. Snoopy is reading Snoopy, the famous comic strip, also is referring to Kafka. Then there is again a reference here. Of course, I will never know. And if his executor, Max Brod, had fulfilled his dying request, like none of us would have heard of Franz Kafka. Burn all of my unpublished manuscripts. This is what Kafka is saying. When you try to smile after reading Dostoevsky and Kafka, so you have this kind of a face. You don't know whether to laugh or cry. And then another meme where a comic strip where Kafka enters, she Gregor on my Samsa till I metamorphosize. So this is, the Gregor, Sensa have become verbs, and Kafka is the background, and metamorphosize has become a life's action. This is a very interesting meme. He gets me. Yes, Kafka gets us. Kafka gets us everywhere. Me and the voices in my head. So the famous voices, you can see, Camus, you can see Dostoevsky, you can see Kafka figuring there. So if you are a person who has confusion in your mind, you probably have these four faces to give that expression in linear form or a visual form. Other players, me, my team versus my enemy, and this is again a reference to Kafka, the fire in the room. Daddy issues, mommy issues. So if you have two roads that diverge and you are at a point, if you go towards daddy issues, you will find Kafka there, lined up with some other great authors. I'm not saying that, these are some meanings, but I'm simply sharing the different kinds of memes and that the different variety that it offers. Again, a different restructuring of the same meme. She friends on my Kafka till I metamorphosize. Exactly once is impossible in distributed systems. This is a theory, and Kafka supports exactly once. Kafka, why you take so long? This is the most famous meme. Any tech support failure is often referred to as Kafka syndrome. Technical support is being slow, is referred to as being Kafkaesque, or some reference with Kafka is created. Then humans when they see a cockroach, philosophers when they see a cockroach. So that's the difference between two people. So you have Kafka here also. Now, when Kafka ends the book with a pessimistic message, but you are starting to think, well, that was the whole point. So pessimism is Kafka's go-to spirit. That's what this meme perhaps tries to say. Is Zookeeper a must for Kafka? Now look at the picture, look at the kind of message that it is trying to give, and here also there's a reference to Kafka. Fortunately, I had a friend who loved to read Kafka aloud and showed me the absurdist comedy in his story. And he tottered like a top under a clumsy whip. So again, there is Kafka's reference. So you can see these two people, one is your Kafka, the other one is the metamorphosis of Kafka present in the same room, and they are all ready to go somewhere, all get set, go. So this is a point of view, and you have this face. You have this face because you are engaged to Kafka. So a girl having this kind of a face because she is engaged to Kafka, she cannot have any other expression, but this is going to be her expression forever. Again, that same animal, same cockroach is having a discussion with somebody, and then there is this 6 a.m., 3 a.m. You can see Kafka, Camus, that 3 a.m., 6 a.m., 3 a.m. That's how you have your time divided among the great writers of the world in your entire day. Now, these are some very famous, GIFs, totally Kafkaesque. Guys, this is very Kafkaesque. I don't think there is any other author whose name has got so popular on social media, and that too with expressions like these, that too with words like these, an expression like Kafkaesque. It's something with picturesque. So picturesque, Kafkaesque. What is Kafkaesque? And we all try to, bring in a perspective to Kafka's. It has no perspective of its own. It has no meaning of its own. We provide context and perspectives to it. With my account without Kafka, my account with Kafka. So you can see this very famous cartoon character also has a relationship with Kafka. And here also you can see how the metamorphosis has been given a visual interpretation, another visual interpretation of metamorphosis. Court collectors, today marks a 7-day countdown. Get your jades and summoning rituals ready. The storm is approaching. Kafka noises intensifies. So you can see this reference to some kind of labyrinth, to a reference to some kind of queuing up, a reference to some kind of beyond human shaping is visible in this meme. Anyone who keeps the ability to see beauty never grows old, says Franz Kafka. I mean, we are not sure, this all these memes, all these quotations that are attributed to Kafka are perhaps correct or not, but they are there. So you can see this Kafka has the idea of beauty is, that bow on Kafka's head that is pasted here in this picture, and it tries to give some kind of visual meaning to our interpretation. So now we come to the discussion, like what are the reasons that for all these, if you just want to look at once more all these things that I have given here, these are the memes you can see that are present here. So I'll be now, if I don't want to be a one-sided, if somebody has anything to add to, you can write in chats here so that can be of use, some meme or something that you're reminded of. Now let us come to the discussion. Like, what do all these means mean? As I already opened with these remarks, that alienation and isolation are very important aspects of Kafka's world, because his characters often grapple with feelings of alienation. It's Gregor Samsa's rejection by his family in the Metamorphosis, or Joseph K's estrangement in the trial. These themes strongly resonate in an era of social media, remote work. We are working from home. It's work from home situations and these kinds of things. So uh, in this era, digital connection, digital disconnection or connection becomes very important for us to find out some kind of jargon to be part of a common population, to be part of community. Then relatability in bureaucratic absurdity. You see that the word absurd is a very interesting term, and often we try to look at absurdity as some kind of phenomenon where some things break down or there is no other way out. On the contrary, absurdity is a very creative paradigm. Absurd is a very rich kind of confusion, a confusion that leads to creativity, confusion that leads to some kind of humor, confusion that leads to suspension of all tensions, and it only provides a kind of a light, or or provides some kind of way out, uh, which is not conclusive, which is temporary, which is just about the moment, which is only about living, surviving, not about finding solutions to our existence. So this, this whole structure of our working, whether our education, job, workplace, familial issues, societal problems, wherever we find things getting delayed, uh, things are complicated, they are layered, we find, that Kafka's critique of bureaucracy mirrors the frustrations of modern online processes, such as navigating complex websites, automated systems, or algorithmic decision making. We are influenced by algorithmic decision making these days. We think that we are deciding, but it's the algorithm that makes us decide. Then mental health conversations. The digital space has opened up discussions about the mental health, and Kafka's exploration of existential dread and personal crisis. It provides a natural entry point for these conversations. So that is why we use Kafka's imagery, Kafka's pictures, Kafka's visual a lot. For example, memes about Kafka's works often crack joke about the absurdity of trying to get the tech support, as I gave you one example, which was which was about the failure of technology. So navigating through technology is a favorite space where Kafka comes in very handy to provide the jargon of absurdity. And then absurdity meets internet humor, and that gives birth to the memes that we have just now seen. Internet aesthetic of irony. We need to find out, like, what is this? The internet thrives on irony and absurdity, qualities which are very central to Kafka's narratives. His works often present surreal, inexplicable scenarios that mimic the internet's love for nonsensical humor. And nonsensical humor, I think, has become very popular, has become a go-to agenda for the memification or the meme world. The memeability of absurd scenarios is also very much possible in Kafka, because Kafka's stories, like, you could see, imagine Gregor Samsa's story is that there is a person who one day finds himself being transformed into a cockroach, an insect on his bed. And this is visually and conceptually absurd, but it makes a perfect example for exaggeration and humor in memes and digital storytelling. So suppose I wake up on Monday morning because I don't want to go to job. And for corporate world, Monday morning is the most dreadful day, moment, because you're done with your weekend and it's going back to your work. You don't want to go back to your work. So that image of Gregor Samsa as a giant snake highlights the humorous relatability of Kafka's surreal scenarios. Then flexibility in Kafka's works. Because, the first thing is ambiguity and open interpretation, because Kafka doesn't seek to be, uh, you know, conclusive. He never wants to, uh, wrap up things as final. His works are always work in progress, especially at the level of their themes, at the level of their messages, at the level of the effect they want to create on the audience, on the readers. So this ambiguity and open interpretation is very important aspect. Kafka's works are open-ended literature, open-ended stories, open-ended philosophies. They can be interpreted in multiple ways, and they provide fertile ground for creativity in the digital space. Uh, Similarly, cultural recontextualization, like in different cultures, Kafka can navigate easily because his stories can be adapted to reflect various modern situations, from online dating issues to technology failure to joining offices on Monday morning to not being able to complete your project or assignment. All these, for example, on TikTok, there is one meme in which creators have dramatized Kafka's themes to humorous effect, trying to turn the existential dilemmas into skits about everyday annoyances like internet is buffering. So this buffering of internet is also taking a look at as a Kafka's issue, or when you are trying to log into your bank account and you fail. So that failure has also been addressed from the has found a space in Kafka's world, Kafka universe. It's not menial, it's not trivial. You know, I must say that we have to be very careful that this is not, relegating Kafka to uh, some kind of meniality. I'll explain it further why, because there are so many things that we can say about Kafka which we cannot say about others. The popularization of the word Kafkask is a very important process. It's a very important stage in the journey of Kafka from pages to web pages, because widespread use of the term Kafkask has entered everyday language to describe situations that are absurdly complex or illogically oppressive. You know, what is illogical oppression? For example, Narayan Murthy uh, expecting people to work 24/7 and not having any weekends. To a certain extent, this is illogically oppressive because, on one end, people are going for 3-day weekends, and on the other hand, there is a person who's asking get to do away with weekends. So that kind of absurdly complex or illogical oppressive discussions, its relevance, Kafka's relevance in the digital age, where users frequently encounter convoluted algorithms. I hope all of you are aware of the how algorithms function. We get to reach certain choices. We end up watching same kinds of videos, same kinds of reels, choosing same kind of fashions, and algorithms help us in doing that. So there is a convolution in algorithmic systems, and that makes Kafka an enduring figure in online discussions. Similarly, the digital frustrations that I referred to earlier also, like automated customer surveys to the labyrinth of online forms, all these problems have a representation in Kafkask, because Kafka's scenarios are daily realities for internet users. For example, trying to cancel a subscription online, but you don't find any option. Or, when you buy a certain thing and when you forget to read the return policy, and then you realize that you have to return something and it does not have any return policy. Or, when you have by mistake subscribed to something, but now you cannot subscribe out of it. So these representations connect to the meme world, and we find that Kafka comes in very handy. Then the very interesting thing is that Kafka has created short, impactful narratives, because narratives of modernism were, grand. They were elaborate. They were not short. But the postmodernist narratives have this peculiar quality that they can be short, at the same time similarly or equally impactful as the narratives of the modernist literature or modernist art. So you have digestible content provided by Kafka's works like The Metamorphosis and his short stories, which are concise but very rich in their meaning. And this makes them easily adaptable to the short form content favored in digital spaces. Because in digital spaces, we are looking for few seconds. You have reels of 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. You can also find videos which are of 20 seconds, 5 seconds, TikTok videos. So these space, or tweets or memes, or any other videos. So there is this, the most powerful weapon that Kafka has in his collection, and that is his depth, but his simplicity, but with simplicity. And Kafka's ability is that he conveys profound ideas through simple language, and we end up believing that he is simple. We end up somehow believing that he means to say what I understand, or it is some kind of very striking scenario, which is like, some next door issue or next door situation that we have. So that in minimalist communication, that less use of words, that visual impact, and yet having a sense of depth in it makes these short and impactful narratives very useful for us. So, there is a tweet like which says that woke up, felt weird, turned into a bug. Same. It means we are referring to metamorphosis. So this encapsulates the entire Kafka story in a humorous and relatable format. Then the next one is, when we move on, digital platforms favor visual and conceptual humor. That's something that I've already said in the beginning also, and I would like to elaborate it a bit further. That visual imagery is more compelling because we are living in a world of visuals. So much so that when we look at visuals, we even forget that what we are listening to. When we are looking at visuals, we even forget that what we are speaking. We are so much rushed and empowered by visuals all around, that we are in a competition of creating more and more visuals. I hope I'm audible. So visually compelling
Indeed, you are audible.
imagery, and Kafka's stories evoke strong mental images like Gregor in Metamorphosis or K in The Trial, where you have humor, visual humor. Like you can imagine Gregor crawling on the floor of his room, clock, or getting hit by an apple, or he's scared to move out, so he wants to live under the sofa. And so these are very rich places where we can come in and create some kind of jpgs, gifs, or memes. And then the ease of remixing. See, digital platforms, nothing gets totally wiped out, because today you have classic memes, you have classic tweets, you have classic quotes available on the digital space, and they keep coming back, and we try to recycle them. We try to repackage them with meaning. So they encourage users to remix and reinterpret content. And Kafka's works, with their symbolic and abstract nature, are easily imagined in modern context. For example, a meme showing Gregor Samsa's transformation might be captioned, "Me after eating dairy, even though I am lactose intolerant." So somebody who is lactose intolerant, and if a person has consumed some kind of dairy product, may end up suffering. And that suffering will be indicated in the form of what he or she has undergone, like a cockroach, like an insect, who is good for nothing and has got D-shaped and is waiting for his transformation back into human shape. Then Kafka's cult persona. Uh, Kafka has definitely become a cult for 21st century audience. I will not simply say readers, because we are talking about the audience in this particular context. His status as a literary icon adds a layer of intellectual depth to his memes. Uh, we are all the time sharing Kafka related content, and it gives us a kind of identity to belong to some kind of great iconography that is Kafka. Then contrast of seriousness and humor, both the things are present, and we try to find this dark existential discussion being supported by Kafka, where two things can coexist. For example, in a TikTok message, it was a title, explaining my Kafka's existential crisis to my therapist. And that's the meme that I showed to you. Then finally, we all must agree that Kafka is all about youth engagement today. The popularity of Kafka in digital space and how we see that the depth of Kafka is meeting the digital is because of his engagement with youth and his accessibility that he offers. So whether it is he introduces people to literature, and these memes and short form digital content, they give younger audience some kind of encounter with his works, and that gives them a sense of appreciation, sense of some kind of fulfillment that they have been associated with something literary, and that beyond culture also Kafka exists as a bridge, because he is adaptable across globe. He is a meme which you can send to your international friends also, and you will find that people are able to digest it without any much of cultural complexities or lack of understanding. For example, if you are in a Zoom meeting, and uh, suppose you are discussing with somebody uh, in a Zoom meeting, and it's a corporate meeting, and you have many people from across the world, and if you like that, no, I feel like Kafka in this meeting, so you don't have to explain what you feel like. So that is this accessibility that is important. And this crisis of identity that haunts all of us in digital spaces makes us choose for options which are easily available, options which are classy. And Kafka's presence resonates with that kind of self-exploration, transformation, where people, create their own online personas, and they grapple with real-world alienation. Memes about losing oneself in the digital world often draw parallels to Kafka's existential crisis. For example, I read a post which says, when your online persona does not match, you are an you are IRL, means you are a person in real life. So, and the digital space is uniquely welcoming to Kafka, therefore. So it is his absurdity, it is his alienation, the existential dread and humor, the paradoxes, the challenges that he offers. These are the reasons that we find that Kafka is such a giant, or in the international space. In the inter, I remember at least a decade ago, it was Rumi who was ruling the scene, and Rumi's quotes were doing the rounds from one end of the globe to the other globe. But it's Kafka now, and we have to wait and watch for how long he's going to allow this transition keeps happening, and we allow this to keep happening, because that has Kafka, we definitely see, has a long shelf life in digital space without losing his depth. So in my final comments, I will say that his transition into meme world has exemplified that literature is timeless, and literature can find new relevance and appreciation in contemporary literature as well. Now, coming back to the discussion of city, and if I have this शेर, जिंदगी एक गुमशुदा शहर है, ख्वाब के पीछे खुद से दूर, हर रास्ता एक दराज रास्ता है, दस्ता है जो मंजिल तक न ले जाए जरूर. So we all are urbans now, whether we are living in villages, or we are living in cities, or we are living in metropolitans. We are urbanized or in the process of urbanization. We are far from rurality. We are far from our country identities. And Kafka was always a person who, Kafka's literature, Kafka's language, Kafka's grammar, Kafka's idiom, Kafka's metaphors, always grappled with how to come to terms with this urbanity, इस शहरियत से कैसे हम वाबस्ता हो. So it is this grappling with urbanity, grappling with shahriyat in us that we are holding on to Kafka, and he comes in very handy. It is not just the visuals and the words, but it is Kafka himself, his relationship with his sheher. And if you look at Kafka, you are reminded of his life in Prague and our lives in our own cities, where we are इस शहर में हर एक what is this shade I'm forgetting, पता नहीं, याद नहीं आ रहा है मुझे, but this particular ashar about share about a city where everyone is upset and everyone is looking for a friend, and Kafka becomes that friend in the urban spaces with his language, with his face, with his visuals, with his simplicity, and above all, his depth. So, thank you for this Kafkatic listening. This is my final meme that I share with you. Hate how much I connect with Franz Kafka. So, here's a person who's writing, I hate how much I connect with Kafka. This is all that I have to say. I'll be happy to listen to your discussion and your answer and your comments.
Dear participants, we are already too much late. So we'll be taking, certainly we are not escaping from questions, but we'll be taking a few questions only. So please unmute yourself. And if you have any observation, any remark, any question related to Sunij's lecture or Vibha Sharma's lecture, the platform is open.
I can see some hands are already raised.
There is an observation in the
Shudipto has
box by
written. Shudipto
yes.
has written.
And a question by
Actually,
Shaistara.
yes. I'm reading out Shudipto's observation. Actually, Kafka's does have a definite meaning. It means a feeling of oppressiveness or nightmarishness, a double whammy where there is no clear way out of a situation. Yes, Shudipto, I agree that it is this sense of conviction with which we use Kafka's that he becomes my and your friend. Because the way you say that there is a definite meaning, is the definiteness that Kafka offers, but that is not universal. This I must say. Shaista says, what is the conceptual difference between cinegenic narratives and graphic narratives? That is, I think, directed to Sunij.
Sunij.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. I think cinegenic graphic is something which, like, as you all know, that it's a new literary genre which became popular in 20th century, and which we call graphic novel, where the narration is also communicated through graphical images. So graphic is something which can only, or rather more prominently, go along with the written narration. It's more like an illustration or added you can say dimension. But when you're going for something cinegenic, we are using the term cinegenic more like calling something photogenic. Like, for example, when you look at particular faces, you call them photogenic faces. When you call something cinegenic, you try to think that it can be converted to something that can be converted into the visual narration. For example, if you read Kafka's The Trial, when he talks about from his, and he gives a narration about this, which seems more like montage, taking one sip, then second sip, and third sip. And if you read it, it feels like that's some sort of a montage, which means like it's a cinematic term, which means like a sequence of shots have been arranged or like arranged to give a particular meaning. And then suddenly he talks about that how his are by taking the glass from the glass because there was a shout from the other room. So this is very much synergenic. Synergenic means like something that can be converted to the language of cinema in a movement. As I said to you, the very basic language of cinema says something that can be represented through or in like what you call 24 frames per second. Frames per second, that is essentially about cinema. So it gives you the impression of reality. So that's why I say that cinegenic is something that can be converted into the movement immediately. Sorry if so that's what I call not. I think I'm able to also answer the question.
विभा वो शेर वो भी तो है, वो जो गुलाम अली की गजल है, इस शहर में इस दश्त में एक शहर था,
इस
वो क्या
दश्त
हुआ?
में एक शहर था, हाँ, yes, yes. वो भी है.
Yes. Anyone else? Anyone else? रितु शायद हाथ रेस कर रही थी, रितु भारती perhaps.
शुदीप्तो ने कुछ लिखा है. What do you think of the classification of Kafka via the coquette Kafka figure? A picture of Kafka with a bow over his head photoshopped into it. See, that was what I was referring to, that Kafka has become that friend who is always there without any objection, offering himself to be photoshopped, like, you know, uh, some kind of feature in our mobile phone, which is available for us, we can use. So that bow on Kafka is definitely not a disrespect to him or his relegation to some kind of meagerness, but it is his extension into comradeship or a camaraderie, where his idea of beauty, because it was the quote that he had said that as long as you can appreciate beauty, you are young, you never grow old. So Kafka, for that matter, is a baby, because and that baby has that bow. Its bow is not on the bow is not worn by girls, grown up girls or young girls. Bow is like a baby. So which means that Kafka has so much beauty in his vision that, forget about being young or old, he is still a baby. And that's, I think, a celebration of Kafka's vision. So this is what we need to appreciate in this memification, where the depth is definitely there and digital world has opened new interpretations.
Yes, we can take one last question. Anyone? All right, all right. Yantika, maybe get the session close to the vote of thanks. Yantika or Kanak?
Yes, sir.
जी.
As we conclude this online event in memoriam of Franz Kafka, 100 years of the great writer's death, I would like to extend my vote of thanks to our speakers. Thank you, sir, for your engaging and informative lecture on the cinegenic narration in Kafka's fiction. Your insights were truly enlightening, and we appreciate the time you took to share your expertise with us. Thank you, ma'am. We are deeply grateful for your contribution to this event. Your lecture on the mimification of Kafka, depth means digital, was outstanding, and we appreciate the way you made complex concepts accessible to all of us. Lastly, I would also like to thank our principal, Dr. Mohammad Riaz, for delivering the welcome address, our head of department, SM Yahya Ibrahim, for organizing this event, and to all the participants who have joined us today. Thank you, and I wish you all a happy new year.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Sunij,